Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Since I didn't introduce myself last time, my name is Paul Kale, and today I would like to discuss with you the need for enlisted members to be pilots in the United States Air Force. So, first, I want to start off with a little bit of the history of pilots in the Air Force, talk about the Warrant Officer Program, and then the Commissioned Officer Program and the differences between the three. Then I would like to talk about the retention issues that we're having in the military and kind of the stuff we're doing to mitigate that issue. And then I would like to finish with the enlisted force becoming pilots in the Air Force and what we're doing to transition to that role. Um, so to start with the history, according to military.com, enlisted pilots date back to 1912 and were known then as flying sergeants. They got the name because as soon as they graduated from pilot training in the Air Force, they got promoted to staff sergeant. The program lasted until 1942, but with the passage of the Flight Officer Act, it took away the option for enlisted members to then fly any longer. The Air Force came out with the Warrant Officer Program in in the same year. And that was now the new minimum requirement to fly any planes in the Air Force. The Warrant Officer Program lasted in the Air Force until 1958, but to put it into perspective, today, to become a warrant officer in the United States Army, you have to be an enlisted member and you must have at least 90 college credit hours to meet the criteria. So now that I've given you a little bit of the backgrounds, I'd like to talk about some of the issues that we're having in the Air Force to retain the pilots that we currently have. So it was reported on June 11th of this year by the Air Force Times. General Goldfein stated that we are battling a nearly 2,000 pilot shortfall that could potentially break the Air Force as a whole. The Air Force is competing with the commercial airline industry, who have been on their longest hiring wave that we've seen in many decades. Air Force pilots have a strenuous training requirements, and they are on a constant high deployment rate, which is one of the big problems I think that we're facing with retaining the pilots that we have. And also with the commercial airline industry offering such good bonuses and a little bit more stability, minusing the deployment aspect from the normal day-to-day pilot's life in the Air Force. The Air Force has upped the bonuses for all pilots to try and match the compensation of the civilian airline industry, but our pilots are having to sign extremely long contracts. In most people's eyes, it's just not worth it for the amount of money that they're getting paid to sign on for another, 10 to 12, even up to 13 years. The Air Force recently tried to allow recently retired pilots to come back into the Air Force to try and help mitigate the issue that we're having of the shortfall in personnel. But we had a goal of 1,000 and we didn't reach it. So one big factor for the numbers of pilots in the Air Force is that we currently only have the capacity to train 1,200 pilots per year, which it sounds like a decent number, but when we're having the possibility of 3,000 recruits, not being able to train all of them within a year is kind of a big issue. And of course, all of leadership now is trying to push to transition to getting the number to 1,400 to 1,500 per year. But the big issue in the minds of leadership is that we need to put good commanders in place to create a working environment that's welcome to all members, has a lot of inclusion, and that they understand that the work they are doing is important and vital to the success of the United States. When this environment is created, in my opinion, members will be encouraged to stay not only by their leadership but also by their peers, and this will create a welcome and an environment that they will want to stay in. If you make someone feel like what they're doing is important and that the people around them truly care about what they're doing and their well-being, then again, I think it creates an environment that would be more beneficial to the pilots that we have, and it would reduce the amount of retention issues that we are having. So transitioning into my last one, the enlisted force, and what we're doing to jump back into the pilot role. It's still in testing as of now, but according to the Air Force Times, 15 officers and 5 enlisted members were chosen in December of 2017 to start a program in February of this year and they were going to start the 6-month pilot training program, with the main goal being education or statistics for Air Education and Training Command to take the data of the likelihood of non-college graduates to be able to successfully graduate from a strenuous course like pilot training is in the Air Force. AETC would take all of the data and use it to see the potential for enlisted members to train and fly combat aircraft again, or if we can use our expertise as the enlisted force to train better pilots as they transition into that role in the Air Force. So I discussed with you today a little bit about the history of enlisted pilots in the Air Force, some of the retention issues that we're having, and kind of the transition that we are headed to allow enlisted members to become pilots again. So thank you for your time, and you have a great day.